What's going on, everyone? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm going to be discussing whether or not I think Crowfall is worth playing in 2021. Crowfall is a buy-to-play MMORPG developed by Artcraft, and the game identifies itself as a throne war MMORPG with a massive focus on PvP combat and crafting. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a bit of background about the game because I feel like a lot of people might not know a lot about Crowfall or how the game works, and I'm going to discuss the things that I personally like, the things that I don't like, and whether or not I think the game is worth your time. So as I said, Crowfall is an action combat buy-to-play MMORPG that costs $40 with a non-pay-to-win microtransaction shop. The game also does have a subscription that you can buy called the VIP for $15 a month. This subscription gives you decreased item durability decay, increased bank space, free character respecs, free character boosts to level 25, priority queue access, free monthly crowns, which is this game's microtransaction currency, and extra time on your personal world being active, which I'll explain a bit later. Crowfall has a soft cap of level 30 with a hard cap of level 35. Now, the great thing with the VIP membership being able to boost alts level 25 is that you only need to complete about 5 levels to then immediately have another character ready to go out and fight in PvP and be max level, the soft cap at least. Because your first time leveling through Crowfall is intended to be a tutorial through the game to explain how it works, how the systems are, etc. So you honestly don't really need to do it more than once, so this makes this level boosting feature extremely desirable for creating alts. Items in this game are also thankfully account wide, so you're able to gear alts relatively easily. The game has 11 classes, with each class also having 3 subclasses, as well as 12 races that have their own passives and active ability, giving you a ton of character variety. On top of the tons of character choices, you also have the ability to outfit your character with a variety of gear, which have different weights and can give different stats, but primarily serve as a stat stick. You're not going to be having any gear set bonuses like you would see in other games. Your main character customization comes from 3 sources: attributes, disciplines, and talents. Talents can give you passives, actives, or just stat increases. Attributes are flat stat increases that you can give to your character, and disciplines can either give you additional actives and or passives. So all of these things just give you a ton of theory crafting capability. This game also has 3 factions: Moon, Sun, and Earth, and in certain campaigns these factions fight against each other. Guilds also have factions that they're associated with, and this faction though can be changed at any time though if you end up not liking your choice. Now, Crowfall operates on a campaign type of structure for its in-game world. So you do not have a realm like you do in World of Warcraft. It kind of has more of a channel architecture similar to something like BDO or old school RuneScape. You have eternal kingdoms, which are player-built worlds that can serve many purposes, such as in-game housing, trader markets, dueling arenas, and more. These eternal kingdoms are spun up whenever you log into them and then stay active for a time after you disconnect, assuming you have VIP. This is why if you have an EK with a trader on it, you're going to want, EK is Eternal Kingdom, you're going to want to have VIP so that it's not only publicly available, but it's accessible for longer after the last player disconnects, because if there's no player connected to the Eternal Kingdom for 3 hours, it will then go down until the owner logs back into it and spins it back up. You then also have the God's Reach worlds, which serve as your tutorial worlds and your permanent area that is up all the time. Your main account vault is also here as well, which can be thought of as your primary bank storage. You then have PvP campaigns, which you can access at level 25 or higher. And at the time of recording this video, there are 2 primary campaign types: the Shadows and the Dregs. Shadows is your faction v faction v faction realm, while the Dregs is your guild v guild realm. These PvP campaigns have forts, keeps, and other areas on the map that you're going to want to take, and you gain points for taking those locations. When the campaign is then over, you get rewards based on how you did in the campaign. When you play on these campaigns, you actually have to bind your character to that campaign and can only initially go in with what your character has equipped, although you can unbind your character at certain points if you want to move them to a different campaign, but you lose that campaign progress. The campaign then has a unique bank. I talked about the account bank. The campaign itself will have a unique bank, so you'll be doing a lot of farming and grinding mobs inside of the campaign and building yourself up in it over time. You are, however, outside of bringing in the gear that was equipped to your character, able to import a predetermined number of items into the campaign bank from your account vault to help get your character started there. And thankfully, you also do have an unlimited amount of exports, so if you want to take stuff out of the campaign and put it back into your vault, you are able to do that. Now, I know this probably was really confusing and sounded very convoluted, so I'm going to show you a clip from my stream where I actually explain this with a diagram, and it will be a lot easier to understand. Boom. Microsoft Paint. Okay. So consider this. This circle is your vault. Okay? This is campaign 1. The vault is exactly what Gilly is saying. Your persistent world. The bank is active at all times. It's more of like your account storage. Think of it like account storage, okay? It's active all the time. You can access it from most places. You can also send gear from your vault into your campaign bank, but that costs import tokens, okay? Plus tokens, okay? It costs tokens to move stuff into your campaign. You can move stuff out of your campaign vault into your account vault for free. For free. Okay? This is plus token, or I guess technically minus token, and this is free. Now, let's say a new campaign starts. Let's say this campaign is now over, and a new campaign starts. You now get a new campaign bank. That will be empty at first. And again, you can move stuff from here to here, or here back to here. But hypothetically, if you want to move stuff from here to here, you have to go from here to there, back into there. And you can have up to ... 9 of these. Okay? And so at some point, you're gonna have to clean out your campaign banks, your old campaign banks. And when you're actually playing Crowfall, it is a partial loot drop type of PvP game, with the amount of loot you drop varying based on the location that you are in. In the Shadows campaign, if you die, you lose a portion of your inventory, all gold you're carrying on your character, which is why most people keep their gold in their bank, and then you take some durability damage on your gear, but you do not lose your equipped gear. You just take durability damage. You do not drop it. In the Dregs, you lose your entire inventory, and then again, you take durability damage on your gear, but do not drop it. Now, gear in Crowfall cannot be repaired. So the main gameplay loop is to farm mobs to get gold and world dropped gear, and then use that gear to fight other players and get items and gold off of them. You can then use your gold to buy crafted gear from players, which is better than the gear you can get out in the world. If you choose to go more the route of the crafter, which is the other main gameplay loop in the game, you can then focus on instead choosing to farm materials or use any generated gold to buy materials, then focus your efforts on crafting items for other players and or yourself. You also have a ton of crafting specific items that you're able to equip, such as tools, tool belts, which augment your crafting and gathering. Like most MMOs, you also do have a mount in the game, which does decay similarly to gear. However, like mounts, however, mounts that you buy off of the microtransaction shop can be used as a skin for future mounts. So it's not like if you buy a store mount and then it decays and breaks, it's gone forever. You can use that purchased mount kind of like as a skin to make other future mounts you have look like the mount that you bought. Now, the trading system in the game, though, is also kind of similar to that of the Elder Scrolls Online's, with a trader type of system and not a central auction house. Traders can be placed in one of two places. In the free city, which can be found in the Dregs or the Shadows campaign, if there's an available trader spot, it's like an NPC that you literally buy and then place in a location, or you can place them in player Eternal Kingdoms. You can then sell whatever you want on your trader, and players can browse a variety of traders looking for their goods, but I'll expand more on this later in the video. Now, it's going to cover a bit about Crowfall. So as you can tell, this game is focused very heavily on PvP and crafting. The crafting in this game is very in-depth. And I just wanted to kind of give you guys a top-down view of the game so you had a rough idea of what it has to offer and includes. But now I'm going to go into my pros and cons list for the game, with my first pro being the combat. The combat is actually very, very fun, albeit it does feel a bit floaty. At first, when I started playing the game, the floatiness of the combat kind of off-put me a little bit, but the more I played it and as I got into PvP fights and stuff, I really, really started to enjoy it, and I actually found the combat quite fun and enjoyable. So if you're looking for some good action combat PvP, Crowfall will supply that. I also do think that Crowfall's main endgame gameplay loop is overall very enjoyable, and crafters and PvPers have a very symbiotic relationship. I kind of like the concept of being able to just, kind of farm up gold and get some gear and build up just kind of like a reservoir of equipment, and then being able to just go out and fight people, and then basically kind of sustain myself off of killing my enemies. And as I generate more gold and get more stuff off of them, I'm able to then buy crafted gear from the crafters, which then gives them money, and then I can go back out and keep fighting to get more materials. It's just a very cool gameplay kind of relationship between PvPers and crafters, and I do find it very enjoyable. I also do find the concept of the campaigns and seasons in the game very cool. Now, certain worlds going forward can have fun and interesting rules that give you a unique experience. You know, it's not just going to be faction v faction or like the guild v guild all the time. They might add other things in the future where, you know, every player has a certain discipline active at all times, or you can only use a certain type of item here, or you can't use this type of item. So they're going to be able to add unique kind of rule sets to each campaign to make the PvP feel kind of fresh and spicy, depending on what they want to do. It's also nice that there's an import limit on how many items you can bring into the campaign, so that veteran players can't just bring everything but the kitchen sink in with them and give themselves a just ginormous advantage over newer players. Now, also, as seasons go on, they go through the spring, summer, fall, and winter actual in-game seasons, kind of alongside the quote-unquote gaming season, so to speak. And the world changes around you as you go through these seasons, as you can literally see the world progress from spring, summer, fall, and winter. Mobs also become harder to kill as the seasons go on, and they drop better loot, and this, like I said, also coincides with the realm seasons. So at the end of winter, it means that gameplay season is over, and then rewards are handed out. Now, capturing castles, forts, and etc. can only happen at certain times of the day, depending like on a schedule, which you can see in game, and this will prevent night capping. In certain games like ESO, you see that there's a massive problem in Cyrodiil, where at like 3 a.m. guilds will just run through and night cap the entire map, so that when people log in the next day, they're just kind of gated and have to recapture the rest of the map. But that is one advantage of having these things be on a schedule, is that you do not run into the issue of night capping. Crowfall also does have a very good roadmap for the future, which I'm going to show on the screen right now. The game, in my opinion, absolutely did have a soft launch. This game, in my opinion, did not launch like a fully, completely, ready to go product. It kind of feels more like another beta period, but they, soft launch with in my opinion, like I said, a very good roadmap, lots of good plans for the future. So that is nice, though, at least, that even though I think the game is missing a lot of things, which I'll go over in my con section, we do have a good roadmap going forward that shows that a lot of the things that I was hoping to see in the game are hopefully going to be coming soon. Crafting is extremely in-depth and is a game in and of itself in this. You can get very, very much into the crafting. There's somebody that I know who, he is a PvPer, and one of his friends is a crafter, and they just, like I said, have that symbiotic relationship that I talked about earlier, where the friend just crafts all the time and he PvPs, and they just exchange items back and forth, and it's really, really cool. So if you like crafting in this game is seriously, seriously in depth. So I definitely recommend taking a look at it if you do like crafting in games. Crowfall also does encourage a lot of social interaction. You can't really be entirely self-sufficient without it being an absolutely massive hassle. It is, you are going to be talking with other players. You're going to be reaching out to them to try and, look for people who specialize in certain crafting professions, or might be able to supply some materials to you, or maybe you have a guy that gives you certain items on a regular basis. It really does encourage players to talk to each other, interact, join guilds and groups, and meet people to be able to, like I said, kind of have that symbiotic PvP crafting relationship that I mentioned earlier, or even have like a crafting guild where players just cycle items around so that everybody can craft all the items they want, and then they could all list them all on traders together and create this like trade conglomerate, which actually already does exist in the game. So I do think the ability to do that is actually pretty cool. Crowfall also does have amazing theory crafting and builds, which was one of the biggest things that hooked me. If anybody's watched my channel for a while, I'm really into character building and theory crafting. And so Crowfall having a bunch of things that kind of play towards that, with the class choices, subclass choices, races, discs with disciplines, attributes, talents, skill choices. There is just a lot to be able to choose from, and I think it is really fun to make builds. You also don't have any stereotypical dailies and weeklies in the game, which is really, really nice. I've been finding myself trending away from games that have the quote-unquote chores that you have to do all the time, and I'm kind of glad that Crowfall does not have those, which I do really like. The music in the game is also fantastic. It gives me some World of Warcraft Grizzly Hills vibes, and I noticed that really quickly when I started playing the game, that I was like, hey, I really like the music. It's very, very good. Moving into some gray area points, though, before I hit the cons, my first gray area point is the art style. Cartoony graphics are not for everybody. You know, you see some people, they dislike WoW because of its graphics, and people sometimes want more realistic stuff. Other people don't care about the graphics. So if you're not into cartoony graphics, then you probably won't like Crowfall. Personally, it's not something I mind. The art style of the game has actually grown on me over time. I actually really didn't like it at first, but now I do like it a lot more. But again, your mileage may vary depending on what you like artistically. My other gray area point is performance. Now, the reason I have performance as a gray area point is because they have actually made really big strides on the performance front. When the game released, performance was really, really bad, but talking with other veterans of the game and other people, performance has greatly improved over time, and they are continually improving it as time goes on. And it's not like I'm saying they're improving it and they say they're improving it and it's not actually improving. Like, they are actually making performance improvements, which is good to see. Again, in the large scale fights, it's not perfect right now, but the fact that they are improving it kind of lands this as a gray area thing as opposed to a con. So thankfully, performance is getting better over time. Now, moving into my cons, and this game does have a bunch of them, with my first con being animations and audio cues on certain abilities desperately needing improvements. Some of your skills feel really satisfying to use and hit and feel like they have good impact, and others feel like you're just swinging a pool noodle at somebody. It's really kind of disjointed that some like audio and animations for skills are good and some are really, really bad. You know, like for example, like on my assassin, my left click animation just feels really floaty and bad to use, while on the other hand, my primary stun feels really good and has nice impact to it. So I do really think that a bunch of the animations and audio in the game could use some improvement on the skill front of things. Also, the mob or monster leash range is insanely high. Some people don't mind this. Personally, I found it really, really jarring coming from basically any other MMO. Crowfall has by far the longest mob leash and aggro range of any game I've ever played. And it's just, like I said, it just feels really weird. Just kind of coming into it, you're like a country mile away from a mob, and then it just starts attacking you, and it chases you like 5 football fields. It's really, really weird, and it will definitely take some time to get used to. Also, the leveling process in Crowfall is really good in theory. The theory behind Crowfall's leveling process is we're going to introduce players into the game systems, explain how the game works, and then send them on their way. But it doesn't really do this that well. And in my opinion, the execution of the new player experience is really, really, really bad. I feel like a huge reason that I stuck through the new player experience and moved through it is because I streamed the game and had a lot of veterans of the game in my chat helping me out, because the new player experience is just very, very kind of all over the place. I actually found that some of the quests later on in the new player experience, the tutorials there, were really, really, really good. And a lot of the tutorials in the beginning and in the middle were really, really bad. And it also felt weird because as I started questing, I'm getting all these tutorials and explanations, and then it randomly went into like this whole like weird, like kind of like lore type of quests, which you then literally never interact with again, and then it was back to tutorials, and it was just really, really disjointed. I think if they just focus on the fact that, if you don't know the lore of Crowfall, the biggest abridged version I can give you is that your soul is a crow and the body that you inhabit is a vessel, and you just inhabit the vessel and you fight other players. It is obviously more nuanced than that, but I'm just giving you a very just most abridged version of it. Now, I would have preferred if the new player experience lore-wise, like, I think the opening cinematic explains it well, which again, if you guys do try the game, I'll leave you to watch that yourself. And then just literally go, hey, you're a crow, you're going to fight other people, and we need to get you ready for combat. And just focus the new player experience on explaining the game, explaining how everything in the game works, and take out the really weird, misplaced feeling like lore quests that are kind of there that you literally never use ever again. The new player experience definitely needs streamlining and is one of the weakest points of the game, which is a shame because it is a new player's first experience with the game, and it is not the best. Also, the game does have a bad user interface. You have no mouse mode, no minimap, no UI customization, no nothing. It feels really clunky to use and navigate. They do plan on doing a user interface revamp, but at the moment, the UI is really, really clunky to use. Also, a very, very bad map. You cannot rotate or skew the map. You can't set waypoints on the map. There's a load delay when you open the map. It's just not well made. Also, the chat is really bad. You have to actually hit enter to connect and load into the chat. You then can't like really manipulate and do things with the chat that you would expect to be able to with like literally any other game. And so the chat's really, really, really limited. You also don't have an inventory sort, which does kind of stink because there's a wide variety of materials that you pick up and get as you play the game. And an inventory sorting would be really, really, really helpful. You also can't change your settings inside the game. If you want to change your graphic settings, you have to quit back to the main menu, which I'll then go over in a second, then change the settings and then load back in, which is weird because it's like if you want to see how your performance is affected and how the graphics are affected, you're going to want to be able to change that in the game. Like, why do I have to go back to the main menu, then change it, then load back in? It just seems like an unnecessary extra step, and it's just clunky to use. There's also an item that you get in the game called the bandage that you use to basically kind of heal yourself in between fights. And actually, if you gain distance from your opponent, you can use bandages in combat. The problem is, as far as I know, you cannot cancel bandages with the exception of using a dodge roll. And I don't know why you can't just re-click the bandage keybind and then cancel the bandage. I've literally lost PvP fights because I went to bandage myself and didn't have a dodge roll and couldn't cancel the bandage. And so I got like hit by like a shitload of damage because I'm just sitting there bandaging myself while someone's beating the crap out of me. Speaking of logging out that I talked about earlier, there's a logout timer no matter where you log out from. It doesn't matter if you're in a safe zone, in a player EK, it doesn't matter where you are. You have a logout timer. And I understand having a logout timer when you're out in the world so that you can't just like log out in the middle of a fight and not die, but make it like every other MMO where there's dedicated safe zones where you get instant logouts and then if you're not in the safe zones, you get the normal timer. Why do I have to wait 20 seconds to also log out from a player Eternal Kingdom? It's really like annoying. For example, if you're trying to go from trader realms to try to find goods, every single time you want to log out and switch worlds, you have to wait for 20 seconds. And it's just, again, just clunky and kind of annoying to use. You also can't see the duration left on debuffs placed on the enemy, which I personally found a bit annoying. When you place a debuff on an enemy, for example, it kind of shows up like almost like a badge underneath their health bar, and you can see like the debuff. And you know, for example, they could literally just put a number underneath it that shows how long is left, or that badge has like a white border around it. Just make that white border kind of like move as your debuff decrease is like, you know, ticking down, so that you know, like, hey, okay, I got to refresh this dot or refresh this whatever, you know. The fact that I can't see how long is left on my debuffs kind of feels a bit limiting. The bank user interface is also very, very poor. Not enough sorting in the tabs. You literally, I think, have like weapons, armor, and then like everything else. And so they need to add a lot more tabs or give us the ability to create our own tabs. I also believe that I'm not in a guild right now, but from what I've seen, I don't believe there is a guild, like a very good guild UI in the game. A lot of it is done through the website, which I find very strange. They definitely need to add this into the game. I believe you can search for guilds and join guilds in the game, but I think a lot of the guild stuff is done outside of the game, which I find a little bit strange. Could be wrong on this point, but I do believe that is how it works. There's also very poor character visual progression in the game with no appearance choices. Your armor is predetermined based off of your race and armor type. And in my opinion, that is one of the biggest downsides of Crowfall at the moment. MMORPGs are very, very, very focused around character visual progression. And to not be able to change your character's appearance outside of changing your armor weight, to me, is very strange. And I hope that going forward, and according to their roadmap, they do plan on this, adding the ability to change our armor appearances, dye our armor, make them look different, because there are some armor sets in the game based off of certain races that look pretty cool. But, you know, some armor races or some races armor types, in my opinion, look very bad. And if you choose a race for a, you know, for the purposes of an ability or a passive, and your armor looks like crap, like, it's, you know, it's kind of stinks. You know, part of the MMO experience is thinking your character looks really cool, and you can't change that at all, which I think is a bit weird. You also, I think the game desperately needs, again, more visuals, achievements, titles, items for your Eternal Kingdom, transmogs, dyes, all of this stuff for doing like PvP things out in the world, or crafting or gathering items or whatever, would be so cool for a game like this. And they're just not there at the moment. And I do believe some of this stuff is coming, but a lot of the visual progression and like cosmetic items that you can earn in the game, like it's just not there. And the potential for it is there, but they just don't have it implemented, which is, in my opinion, very disappointing. The final con that I have is one of my biggest ones, and it's why I saved it for last, is the trading system. The trading system in this game is extremely convoluted to use. So like I said earlier, you have a trader that you can buy and place around the world. The problem is, if you're going to, let's say, a trader's Eternal Kingdom, there's an Eternal Kingdom in the game. I'm just going to use a random number. This has 10 traders on it, right? When you go into the world and you zone into that person's Eternal Kingdom, you do not know what each trader has. You have to log up to each individual trader and talk to them and look through their stock. If you play the Elder Scrolls Online, it's basically like the equivalent of like having the trading systems when you're on consoles and you don't have the ability to use Tamriel Trade Center on PC. It's very, very, very similar to that. And it's really, really annoying to navigate. Now, my personal solution for this, because I actually find the trading system with the EKs and the free city, I find it very interesting in concept, and I don't think necessarily conceptually it is a bad thing. All I think they need to do is at the entrance to the free city, or at the entrance to every Eternal Kingdom, you just have an NPC that has a ledger. Your Eternal Kingdom in the free city already has to have a database of what items are available from the different traders in the world. Just take those things and shove them into a matrix with information and tags about the item, and give people the ability to search a ledger, for example, to see, let's say they're searching for an axe, right? They search, white axe, that's, crafted white axe, and the trader goes, hey, or the ledger guy goes, hey, Trader Bob has the white axe you're looking for, and then it sets a waypoint on your mini map, and then you're able to, or on your map rather, excuse me, or on your compass at the top, and then you walk over to Trader Bob and you buy your axe, and then you're good to go. It still keeps the ability for the traders to have unique goods, and they don't have to be predefined, and it still keeps the whole EK system in place and the trading system in place. But instead of having to go talk to all 10 traders to find out who has your axe that you're looking for, you're able to just talk to the NPC at the front gate, search for your axe, you see which trader specifically has it, if one even has it on that Eternal Kingdom or in the free city, and then go and buy it. It would just make it about 9,000 times easier to use while keeping the current system intact. But hopefully that made sense. Hopefully, if you've never played Crowfall before, that explanation made sense to you. Now, with all of this being said, I know I just ripped through a lot of information on the game. Do I think it's worth playing? Is Crowfall worth getting into? At the moment, I think Crowfall is only going to be worth playing if you're a fan of PvP-focused loot drop games and you believe in Crowfall's potential and its projected roadmap. Right now, in my opinion, Crowfall suffers from a death by 1,000 cuts. The core endgame loop of the game is really, really fun. I think the endgame gameplay loop is very enjoyable. I personally enjoy the PvP combat as well, and I find it very fun, and I do play the game actively. But there are just so many little things wrong with the game that even though I feel like they did a good job with the big things, the game, the big picture items, it's hard to ignore all of the quality of life issues that the game has on top of the game missing features that you'd expect it to have. Like I said earlier, Crowfall's launch, in my opinion, was a soft launch. This feels like more like another beta test more than it does a full game release. Like I said, a lot of things you'd expect from a game like this are currently not in the game. It's just missing a level of polish that you'd expect from a newly released game, with the UI being so limited, moving around the game being clunky to do, limited visual progression, and other cons that I discussed. With that being said, I am hopeful for the future of Crowfall, and I do think it has the potential to kind of go through a similar life cycle that Albion went through. The game released kind of like a bit of a mess, but overall it had a good skeleton to it, and they filled it in over time, and as they did, a community for the game developed and formed around it. These types of loot drop PvP focused games, they're not for everyone. It is definitely more niche, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Like I said, I'm personally enjoying Crowfall myself, but I don't blame anyone at all for wanting to wait a while to see if Artcraft can clean up the game and add in a lot of these quality of life things and other features that we'd expect before they fully dive into it. And me personally, my first impressions of Crowfall were not very good. But the longer I played it, the more I enjoyed it. And like I said, I actively play the game myself. However, I don't think most people will do what I did and really try to stick it out. And like I said, I also had my stream chat helping me out too, which made a huge difference. Most people are going to log into the game for their first time, encounter the extremely poor new player experience and all the quality of life issues, say the game is bad and just move on, which is kind of a shame because like I said, I do think Crowfall's meat and potatoes, the end game gameplay loop is enjoyable and the season's concept is cool, but they need to address the new player experience as soon as possible, as well as some of these quality of life issues so that players don't just flame out before they can get to the main end game part of Crowfall. If they can do that, I do think the game has potential to do well and develop an audience over time. But if you like the good things that I discussed about Crowfall and want to try to support its development and believe in its future, you can definitely consider purchasing the game. If you want to try it for free as well and get a discount if you do purchase it, you can use my affiliate link in the description below or in the pinned comment. However, if you aren't looking to essentially play a beta, I wouldn't step into Crowfall quite yet and instead wait to see how they start approaching their goals that they set for themselves on their roadmap. But guys, with that being said, that is going to be it for me today on my review of Crowfall. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you tried Crowfall, what did you think about the game? Please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you guys did like this video, I'd appreciate if you left a like on it. And for more Crowfall content, as well as other MMORPG content, is it worth playing videos and first impressions, I'd appreciate if you hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. Thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.